Up next, we're going to talk about amplifying your brand with influencer storytelling. We've got a great lineup for you all. First up, we're going to have Kelly Schultz. Kelly, you can go ahead and join me if you want. The Vice President of Communications for LPGA. Welcome, Kelly. Hello. Then we're going to have Preston McClellan, the Director of Player Content for the PGA Tour. After him, we'll move into higher ed, and we've got Eric Lindsay, from the Director of Communications from the University of Kentucky Athletics, and Eric DeSalvo, who's Assistant Athletics Director at UCF Athletics. These teams have figured out the magic of reaching out to your players, reaching out to your network, your crowd, getting content into their hands so that you can amplify your message. Kelly, we're so excited to have you here. Thank you for kicking this conversation off.
Thanks so much, Kristen. So happy to be here with you guys and being able to talk. Are you guys able to see my screen?
We are. You're good to go.
Okay, perfect. So hi, everyone. I'm Kelly Schultz, Vice President of Communications for the LPGA. I've been with the LPGA 9 years, and in my current role about 3, and do a lot of different things when it comes to communications and messaging. But today, really going to focus on our content and how we use our players really as our influencers and amplifying on that. So first off, thanks to PhotoShelter for having me. And when we first started talking about this panel discussion in storytelling, I really had to think about what power of a moment, what influencer thing did we want to focus on. And for us, really, it's been about the last 3 months and how we've had to shift our strategy and use our players really in a whole different way. Because when it comes to storytelling in sports, really all of our focus is on the competition. We want to talk about those, capture that key moment that everybody's been talking about, those big shots, tell the story of the underdog, have that trophy being held up. So what happens when all of a sudden the competition stops? And that's the challenge that most of us in sports were faced with 3 months ago when the COVID pandemic hit and sports were shut down across the United States. But actually, the LPGA, we were impacted even a little bit earlier. We were impacted about a month earlier in February when our competition shut down. As a global tour, we were scheduled to play in Asia. And so all of a sudden on February 16th, we had played our last event and we were having to focus on how do we change our content strategy? What do we do now that we no longer have weekly tournaments? So while it was a challenge, we looked at it also as an opportunity. How, as a women's organization, unfortunately for women's sports, we don't typically get the type of attention that men's sports get. So with no live sports on TV, with people now focused on their social channels and digital channels a lot more than they had been in the past, we wanted to try to figure out how we could create even more of a connection between our players and our fans and any fans that might be tuning in to the LPGA that hadn't in the past. So with that challenge, it became about what are the things we need to showcase. One of those for the LPGA is the approachability of our players. Our players really like to connect with our fans, and that's something we always have at our tournament sites. So how do we then bring that in to what we're doing on our social channels? So we took the opportunity to really look at each social channel and say, what are the tools that we can provide our athletes to make that connection? So the first one we looked at really was Twitter. And as we talk about here, creating dialogue. How do we create that conversation that's taking place between our athletes and their fan base? So part of that is using our individual channels. We looked at Twitter and their live Q&A, also in some of these where you could have more of that face-to-face interaction. Previously, we had always used Twitter Q&As as just a type and answer type format. So we really tried to figure out ways much more to humanize and make it their own. As we went on, we also wanted to use Twitter, Instagram as sort of giving that showcase into what our athletes were doing. Something really unique about this time during the pandemic is so many people being at home, our athletes were sharing that exact same experience. Our athletes aren't used to being at home, and if they are at home, they're at a golf course. So for the first time, they didn't have their typical practice facility that they were used to. So they were doing things in their home. Golf also unique in that most people who follow the sport play the sport and want to get better themselves. So we really talked to our players about utilizing technology and trying to take video and pictures of their setups that they were now doing at home. And here you can see some great pictures of Sarah Kemp setting up something in her garage with a ladder drill. great video that got a ton of views. We also had Amy Olson, who was just using some things right in her own living room. So if you weren't able even to get outside into a practice area, these were the types of things. And I think this is a message that's been carrying through during the day, but something that I think was a lesson that will stay with us beyond once the pandemic is over is high production value isn't always the ultimate thing that we have. And for our athletes, we wanted to show them that anytime you can have a camera in your hand, you can showcase things that people don't often get to see. What is that behind the scenes? I know some of my other panelists will be talking about that too. It's really important to let the fans get an inside look. And so that's something we really tried to amplify during this time. We also wanted to use our social channels to look beyond just golf. Our players have a huge amount of interest outside of the sport, and sometimes they don't always get to connect with fans about that. So we tried to showcase some of our players through Instagram Lives, through takeovers, sometimes of our channel, sometimes of their own, and really showcase those different things that they're doing. This right here is Christy Kerr, one of our longtime players on tour, who Christy actually has 2 different wine labels. One of them is all raising money for breast cancer research. And so we set up like a happy hour tips and sips where most of the focus was on Christy teaching you how to taste wine and what are some of the things that you're looking for. And she's actually an aspiring sommelier, so she gave some really great tips, and we really saw fans engage with that content. This is one of the examples of the takeovers that we have where a player takes over our Instagram stories and gives you a day in their life. And this is Marina Alex. And Marina's from New Jersey. Her parents actually owned a restaurant as she was growing up, and so she's really into cooking. So with our fan base, she shared a list of ingredients at the very beginning of the day and then took everybody through all the process of making it, got some questions, even answered live, but made a really great sweet potato gnocchi with a vodka sauce that a lot of our fans really loved. And then what we ended up doing was taking all of these and turning it into some stories for our different digital channels so that people could go back and follow as well. The other things that we tried to share were through Facebook. We did a lot of look backs, re-airing some of our great content of our, actual tournaments that people weren't able to watch. But we tried to make sure that we created that player connection through these opportunities as well. It was really important for us not to just show what had happened previously, but to get our athletes' take and add a unique spin on that. And with that, that was an opportunity to use some technology called KidsWe that we've been using. And then the other thing we tried to do was look at other technology that would connect our players with our fans in a unique way. And one of those was through one of our partners at Topgolf. They have a video game called the World Golf Tour. So we got our players on competing through that format. So it was a great chance to really reach the video game audience a little bit more, but also to give our fans a chance to see our players engaging in competition where they were actually laughing and connecting. And we learned very quickly our players were not very good necessarily in the video game format, but really related to all of the audience that was watching them throughout that. So the last thing is I'm sort of wrapping up and talking about these, all of these opportunities really gave a chance for our players to engage with our fans, connect, show off their personalities, and do that. But I think what's really important too, as we did all of these, tried all of these different things, we wanted to make sure we amplified all that content through our athletes' channels. And you're going to be hearing more from some of the other panelists coming up on how they do that. But it's really important not just to think about your brand social channels, but to really reach that content to the people who have bigger reaches. Our players have way broader of a reach than even the LPGA does. So we want to make sure that anything that we're trying to do, we connect through their channels and making sure that we're reaching the fans that we want to reach, that they're growing their brands as long as we're growing ours as well. And I think through all this time, all of these different lessons that we've learned have really been important that we'll carry through and making sure that we keep that connection and try some of these different tools that we'll be using beyond even once we start resuming play and get back on the golf course at the end of July.
Amazing. Thank you, Kelly. That was so cool. You guys have really figured this out, and it's really nice to see it all working for you. Now we're going to introduce Preston. Preston McClellan joins us from the PGA Tour. Welcome, Preston. How's it going?
Good. How are you, Kristen?
Good, good. We're excited to have you. We're going to keep with our golf theme, and then we're going to go over to college athletics for this conversation.
Perfect. Sharing my screen right now.
Perfect.
I'm gonna go into full screen mode.
Yeah.
All right. Good to go on the screen, Kristen?
I'm not seeing it yet, but it could be just catching up. You may need to hit slideshow and then view show. Oh, it looks like it was just catching up.
Good to go?
Well, hit it one more time probably on the slideshow.
Sorry for the technical difficulties. I guess Murphy's Law is definitely happening.
It happens. We're
I'm
rolling with the punches today.
in presentation mode on my side right now.
Okay, we are still seeing your other screen. There we go. Perfect. You're good to go.
Got it? Okay,
Yeah.
cool. All
Awesome.
right, so my name is Preston McClellan, and I head up our player content operation at the PGA Tour. And I'm going to hear a lot of similar themes here of what Kelly just hit on. Is obviously we work very closely with Kelly in the LPGA, and even sharing things like technology. For example, she mentioned Kiswi. We also leverage that technology quite a bit during the COVID-19 quarantine. And we're lucky enough now to be back in our third week back, having resumed competition. We're up in Hartford, Connecticut this week at the Travelers Championship. So we're in a unique position right now of still balancing having a lot of limited resources and limited staff in the office, but still being back to a relatively full-time schedule in terms of our competition side of things. So that's creating some unique challenges. But today, I'm going to talk to you about influencers, and we really view influencers in two different ways at the tour. Obviously, we have an influencer marketing strategy that goes beyond the walls of golf. But today I'm going to talk about our players because we really think about our athletes and our players as our biggest influencers. And I think the Kelly hit on this point is that our players also have significantly more followers across Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram than the PGA Tour. So collectively on those three platforms, the tour has somewhere between 8 and 10 million followers, depending on how you measure. On the same three platforms, the players have collectively over 60 million followers. So even after deduplication and everything, you can see there's still a significant number of people that are following a PGA Tour athlete that are not there and not following the PGA Tour league account. So we really see that as a major opportunity to grow our fan base, to get content in front of people that follow our players that don't follow the tour, and hopefully long-term convert them into a PGA Tour fan as well. So the overused metaphor that I use to describe this is a rising tide lifts all ships. So if more players or more people are following our players, more people are inherently following the PGA Tour. And the unique thing about the tour and the LPGA is the same way, is that we're actually a membership league, and so we function much more as a players association than we do as a league. And what that means is that, for lack of a better way of saying it, the players are our bosses. So part of our job is to make them look good and to put them at the center of everything that we do. And so this slide is just to kind of simply show that, like, player content at the tour takes on a much more outsized role than necessarily at a different type of team or league setup, because they are the lifeblood of everything we do, and they also have a significant input on what we do and how we do it. So internally we have marketing, social, entertainment, communications, player relations, corporate sponsorships, and all of those folks are trying to flow through player content side of things and connect with that larger audience. So one of the things that we do internally, and before I go in, yes, that is Brooks Koepka half naked on your screen, and that's a real shoot from ESPN The Body magazine in 2019. So one of the things that we do at the tour in order to inform our content strategy is we build an internal program called Catalyst. And Catalyst is really just a term that we use internally at the tour, but it's essentially a creative brief program for all 200 plus of our members. And we like to joke at the tour that we love all of our children, the players being the children. There's just a lot of them. And on any given year, we have around 250 active players on the PGA Tour. So I'm super jealous of a lot of the teams that have spoke today, even NFL teams that have 60, 70 guys to keep account of. I would love to have a smaller number of people to deal with. But how we approach that is we have a communications department of about 25 people, and everyone in our communications department is responsible for 5 to 6 players on a yearly basis, and they essentially become that player's PR rep within the tour. So it's their job to get to know the player and what makes that player tick on and off the golf course, and to help pitch that player into stories and media opportunities that's going to help build that person's brand. And so these are some good examples on the screen here that have happened over the last year and a half. I obviously already mentioned Brooks Koepka and the Body magazine. That was something he came to us and told us that he wanted to do. We actively pitched it for about a year and a half, finally got it done last year. And he was over the moon about it. The top left one is an incredible story. He's a guy who's now back on the Korn Ferry Tour, but was a PGA Tour rookie last year named Jose de Jesus Rodriguez, affectionately known as the Shrimp amongst his peers. Just a really cool story that we were able to help tell and place in national media. Nate Lashley on the bottom left won his first event at Rocket Mortgage Classic last year, and he had a pretty tragic incident where his girlfriend and parents passed away in college, and he battled back from that, and we were able to leverage that story to really kind of put Nate into the spotlight and also do some good around the tournament. So I say all of this for Catalyst because it's really the intel that generates every idea that we end up bringing to life on player content. So we get to know the players in order to make sure that we're producing things that fit their brands, but also work for the PGA Tour. So how it all works, Catalyst generates the ideas, and obviously we're relying heavily on our on-site photography and video team. So I believe there's a couple of PGA Tour photographers on the webinar. I know I saw Tracy's name, Tracy Wilcox. So thank you all for all that you do. Our jobs literally wouldn't happen without the photos and the incredible content that's coming back. So then we ingest that as a player content team, and then we use our partner OpenDoors to distribute that content directly out to the athletes via the app that they've created. And we can kind of basically place media in folders in the athlete or the athlete's manager's app, and they can kind of selectively go through it and look to see what they might want to use, when they want to publish it, what platform they want to publish it, and then OpenDoors, like many other platforms, allows us to track the success of all of that after the fact. So just going through some fun photography over the last few weeks, and apologize, I think these might be a little pixelated on your screen just because of how I downloaded the web page stuff, but this is a classic example of our workflow. So we got a text from Brooks's agent on, I think this was the Tuesday of Charles Schwab Challenge 2 weeks ago, our first tournament back after the quarantine. And Brooks, along with many of our other players, were rocking some pretty nice stashes, and he obviously wanted a photo of it. So my team's not on site. We're not going to be traveling for the foreseeable future during this essential personnel time. So we have to touch base with the photographers on site. We immediately let the guys know that Brooks is looking for a photo of his stash. One of our guys kind of surreptitiously took this one. We were notified by it. It was uploaded into our system, PhotoShelter. We downloaded it, put it into OpenDoors, and then, we're not quite as quick as the NFL guys, but we're getting there. Within about 15 minutes after the photo was taken, we did have it in Brooks's team's hands. So we're endeavoring always to get that back. And that's a good example of like pre-tournament workflow as it relates to photos. It's a lot of inbound requests. And then we also kind of monitor what's getting uploaded into both PhotoShelter and Getty for opportunistic things as well. So here's an example of that. As Matt Neesmith he's a rookie on tour, and he had a really good tournament this past weekend at RBC Heritage. Unfortunately, we did not have any video of him from Sunday, even though he did have a strong finish, but we still wanted to make sure that he had a post up on his platforms to take advantage of it. So we were able to get these really simple, high quality photos off of Getty, I think these came from, and bring them into OpenDoors and post it. And I think he had this posted within about 30 minutes of him walking off the 18th green on Sunday. And so Matt only has I think he actually has less than 2,000 followers on Twitter. So to have those engagement numbers on a 2,000 person follower, I mean, is really, really impressive, and just shows that if you're a fan following an athlete, this is the type of content that you want to see. And then another example of us leveraging photos in the moment is where, in this instance, a photo actually speaks, in my opinion, much better than a video. For any of you that are golf fans, you might have seen that Xander Schauffele had a pretty wicked lip out on the 17th hole 2 weeks ago to miss out on a playoff at the Charles Schwab Challenge. And we knew that he would want to post something, but the video didn't really kind of showcase the emotion of the moment. So we were able to find this photo from our team on site, place it into OpenDoors for Xander's team to use, and then they wrote the caption that ended up generating an impressive amount of engagement. As you can see, nearly 10,000 engagements for a player that has, I think, like around 50,000 followers. So those are some photo examples and some quick video ones. These are just screenshots. I'll place the videos in the Slack if you guys are interested. We also do a lot more creative content with our players. That's less plug and play and more talking with them about what they want to do. So the first one here is a Harold Varner. This is actually from last year, where, when Harold, in a press conference, told a really cool story about the first time he met Tiger. So we have seen a lot of success with animation stories. We animated this story. in conjunction with Harold's team, posted it and did very well. The second one is a pretty fun example. Last year, for any golf fans, you might remember that we announced that PGA Tour players can wear shorts during practice rounds. So instead of just issuing a press release as we typically would do, we actually worked with James Hahn, who at the time was the co-chairman of our player advisory council, and he basically wanted to do a Chippendale style video where he literally rips shorts off or rips pants off of himself and to reveal that he's in fact wearing shorts. So I encourage you all to watch that video, and that one was fun. And then the last one here is kind of our bread and butter. It's getting highlight video into the champion's hands within 30 minutes to an hour after that player walks off the 18th green, because posting about winning and capitalizing on that momentum is just as important for an athlete as it is for a team. So everyone that works for teams and leagues know that you capitalize on those emotive moments right after wins. Players and athletes need to do the same thing, and that's what we're here to do, to provide them. And then lastly, to close, these are just some other examples of the types of content that we use, and really just leveraging our players. Like I said, it's a give and take. We know that what they're doing in terms of posting this stuff is very good for the PGA Tour, and in turn, we're providing them extremely high quality content to help build their followings. And as independent contractors, that's what they want. They want to build their following to be able to leverage that into financial opportunities. And at the end of the day, I'm proud of what we've built here at the tour, and I'm excited to see where we go over the next 2 to 3 years, because I don't think that the athlete train in terms of momentum is slowing down. So I'm looking forward to hearing the rest of the panelists and answering some questions at the end.
Awesome. Preston, thank you. I'll go ahead and invite Eric Lindsay up. Preston, that was fantastic. It's so cool to get a behind the scenes look at all of your teams. And now we've got Eric Lindsay from Kentucky Athletics. Eric, welcome. We're so excited to have you here.
Listen, really appreciate being here. First of all, can you see the slideshow?
Yeah. Perfect.
All right. Just want to make sure we're all good there. So anyways, thank you so much for allowing me this opportunity to be on this stage with a lot of really talented people from different industries. It's been really enlightening to hear some of the different perspectives. So I do appreciate that. As Krista mentioned, I work at the University of Kentucky, the Director of Communications and Public Relations with the Kentucky men's basketball team. Kind of specific to the conversation we're having today, I saw our content and social media strategy, oversaw that for about 5 to 6 years. We've now hired on somebody to really take control of that, but I still play a key part in that content strategy. What I'm going to run through today with my part is just how we embrace storytelling at Kentucky, and the approach we've kind of taken in recent years to put our players at the forefront of content creation. On top of all the major national issues that everybody's dealing with right now, one thing that's unique in the college landscape is name, image, and likeness. And for those of you who aren't aware, who aren't tuned into it, the NCAA has supported a recent rule proposal change to allow athletes to take advantage of NLI rights. In other words, receive compensation for their appearance, endorsement, brand, etc. I could do an hour-long presentation of how that's going to affect our world, because it's going to have a major impact. But the one thing I really want to harp on with this group today and how it affects our industry is that those in college athletics, if you weren't already doing so, this is a great opportunity, a great wake-up call that players need to be at the forefront of your content plan. When potential athletes, come to our school and they do the visits and want to know if that's the place for them, they're asking all sorts of questions. They're wanting to know, how are you going to help their game? How can you maybe get to the next level? They're going to ask about academics, facilities, etc. Part of those questions now, in my opinion, are going to be, how can you help build my brand now? They're going to want to know how they can utilize, the markets and your school, your platform and your assets to help them add value to their social media accounts now. That's where this is going to go with NLI. The good news is if you place a premium on player storytelling, you're already there. The more things you and your creative staff can put in front of them and get into their hands, the more they can utilize and enhance their brand. I know at UK, even before NLI came along, we felt like we were doing that. So how do you do that? How do we do that at Kentucky? First of all, we feel like we put our athletes at the table with us. We build a content plan together. We ask them, at the start, how can we better serve you? I'm going to show you a couple examples here. I know video doesn't do great on these, but I'll just kind of show this in the background. What I'm kind of showing you here, if you follow Kentucky basketball closely, you probably know that the NBA draft is a big moment in our program, or a big theme in our program. We take a lot of great pride in the amount of players that we help reach their dreams and get to the next level. But for our standpoint, while it's a big recruiting pitch, sales pitch for our program, the end of the day, it's a moment for the players. It's their big shining moment. So, our thing is, how can we help them amplify it? How can we get content to their hands? Some, say, hey, I want to do a press conference. Some just say, hey, just put out a press release. Maybe it's a quote graphic. It just depends. But we listen to them, what they want to do. In this case, what I'm showing you is Emmanuel Quickly, who was our SEC Player of the Year this past year. Emmanuel said, hey, I'd still really love to speak directly to our fans. I'd love to put together a video. I know that we're all stay at home right now and there's going to be complications to that, but how can you help me? So our thing with him was, hey, shoot some video on your phone. It doesn't have to be the greatest quality. Just shoot something from your hearts. Give something to us. We'll get some video on our back end. We'll overlay it and we'll put it out. And our thing was get the video to him. Yes, we're going to amplify it. Yes, we're going to share on our channels. But the big thing was it's his announcement. Let's put our best content in his hands. On the right here, what I'm going to show you, there's a couple screenshots of this. We asked our athletes at the beginning of the year, what's some things you'd like us to do for you to put on your content channels? And one of the things they pointed to are these arrival photos. If you follow the NBA, you've probably seen them with all sorts of stars, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, etc., of them coming in the arena. Obviously, our guys aspire to be in the NBA and want to be there and want to be those guys. So it's pretty obvious why they want to do the same thing. They want to show off their personality, want to show off their brand. It's a cool way to kind of show who they are. For us, it was an easy process, an easy ask, an easy way of getting content in their hands. It was just a matter of making sure our photographers were in place a couple hours early to make sure they get them walking in, and then it's a matter of getting that content to them as fast as we can, so that hey, when they're back there in the locker room and maybe have 5-10 minutes before the game, maybe they want to get it on their social media platforms then, or immediately after the game, that photo is already uploaded to their phone so they can go ahead and use it. So that kind of leads me into the next part of my presentation, and that's the vehicle in which you get the content to them. Whether it's post-game, post-shooting, plan out your social calendar, whatever it is, if you're going to prioritize getting content in players' hands, you've got to figure out a method in doing that. So that's something that we've really harped on in Kentucky the last few years. There are all sorts of ways of doing this. I'm glad Preston brought up Open Doors. I've heard some other people talk about different content distribution platforms. There's a company like Influencer, Greenfly, a lot that have entered this market in the last couple of years, become major assets with schools to invest in those certain apps, and all feature different strengths and abilities. But the name of the game is the same for all of them. It's empowering the student athletes and making it as easy as possible for the content creators, for us, to get content into their hands. What I can tell you from experience in working with one of them, in full disclosure, we work with Influencer, is that these distribution models make it a lot easier. For example, post game as an SID, I'm in the back doing 100 different things and things are going as fast as possible. One of the things I want to do is get this content in their hands. What Influencer allows me to do, and again, other apps do the same thing, is I can get 100 photos, press a couple buttons, tag them, and immediately this stuff is on their phone for them to share with the world as they please. Now, I know not everybody in times like these, especially in our college athletics world, has the resources, the financial resources to invest in apps like these. But what I will say is that the idea isn't unique to these companies. It's all about finding what works for best for your school, your company, whatever it is, to deliver the content. We're on a PhotoShelter, PhotoShelter summit here. PhotoShelter even has the capability, depending on the permissions you open up. That's another way that I would highly encourage you to look into to be able to share content with your stakeholders. The biggest key, in my opinion, is finding something and sticking with it. From my experience, what I found is most valuable is a consistent model to point to for all of our student athletes. It isn't sharing a video with one student athlete by phone. Another one asks you to airdrop, and another one says, "Can you email it to me?" It doesn't work well when you do it that way. For us, it's a steady message of, "Hey, you need content, go to the app." That's where it's always going to be for you. And we found that when there's a clear and consistent distribution channel, the student athletes not only adjust to it, they embrace it and they use it. So I want to show you here just a screenshot of Nick Richards here on the left, one of our star players this past year. This is his last 10 posts on Instagram. And as you can see here, 10 of the posts, 10 of the 12 were content items that our team either shot photography-wise, video, or graphics that we uploaded to him and gave to him, and he used it. And then I'm going to go back to Emmanuel again, another 12 of his latest posts, and 6 of those were produced by our team that he used. And I'll even show you a couple others with his new agency and one that a media member he got from that he used it. So, for me, when I look back at the data for us, since the fall of 2017, when we first started using Influencer, on our Kentucky basketball team alone, our athletes have downloaded 6,685 pieces of content to share on their social platforms. If you think about it, our basketball team, we've got 13 to 15 student athletes. For that little of a team, for that few players to use that many pieces show, it's kind of a corny analogy, but if you've ever seen the Field of Dreams movie, if you build it, they will come. We kind of look at it as if you build it, they will use it. It's our data of the last few years has really shown that. The key thing I want to make sure when I'm saying all this and driving home player storytelling is I don't want to give off the impression that, hey, focus strictly on getting your players content, ignore your team accounts. That's not what I'm saying. Absolutely not. We know that managing our team accounts and our team brand is not going away, and we understand the importance of it. At the end of the day, that's always going to be the home base for our content. It's always our most consistent messaging and branding. And with a program like us that has a lot of turnover every year and a lot of moving parts, it's always going to be our foundation. So I'm not saying to do that. I'm just saying to embrace player storytelling within your team accounts too. We've noticed within team accounts that our highest performing content is when it directly involves our players getting in front of the camera and interacting with our players. Again, I'm gonna play this video in the background and just let you see. But basically, what that video is we've got a huge turnover this year, 10 new guys. We just did a simple video. We just said, hey guys, shoot something just saying, hey BBN, looking forward to seeing you, looking forward to get on campus working. Very, very simple video. But what I can tell you is over the last 3 months, this is our highest performing content piece, the most amount of views, most interactions. And the reason being is because at the end of the day, your players are your stars. They're who people want to see. People want to see other people and they want to interact with them. At the end of the day, that's social media is about, as its very core, is the interaction. And just to drive that home, I'm going to take a quick little analysis of our SEC when we clinched the SEC championship versus Auburn back in February. Again, I'm gonna play this video in the background. You won't be able to hear what's going on, but what I want you to notice about this video, if you can see it, this is a highly produced, highly edited video. We've got an award-winning staff that does this series called The Journey. They put a lot of time and a lot of effort into these. Very thematic storytelling with some incredibly talented people that put a lot of hours into work. The video on the right, and Kristen, I'm not sure if you have it pulled up or not, because I do want to play that. Do you have the ability to play that for me?
If you just take your headphones out and hit play and just turn up your volume, you should be good to go. And then we can also drop these links into the Slack channel later.
Okay.
Perfect. Go for it.
All right, and I don't know if you heard that. If you didn't, just real quick, all that really was our players just celebrating the win. Very simple video. We gave them a phone and said, hey guys, just record what you want to say. Nothing to it, no production, not a lot of production time spent on it. What I do want to show you is the numbers on these videos. As you can see here, this video I talked about that we put all this time and effort into got outperformed, almost double on the views and way more than that on the interaction in terms of comments than the thing on the left. Now, there's a whole lot of other things that go into that, obviously the timing of when it's produced, a bunch of other factors that make a difference in that. But the point, again, I'm trying to drive home is that when you put players in front of all your storytelling, it just seems, for us, it seems to work better. And last, just to end this off, I know I'm over on my time here. The one thing I want to drive home is that your brand is their brand and vice versa. If you're doing right by your players and focus on them, they're going to elevate your brand. We believe, in our opinion, as many creative people as we have working for us and the stuff we put out, they're our best storytellers. They tell the story of our team and our departments better than we can ever do. What I mean by that is no matter what type of messaging we want to drive home, their voice is the most genuine and the most authentic. When we properly equip them and put them on a platform to tell their stories, we find that our fans are more engaged, our potential ticket buyers are more engaged, and most important, our program, the lifeblood of our program, our potential recruits are more engaged. And quite frankly, as you can see by the numbers there on the bottom, and Preston touched on this in his presentation too, at the end of the day, their brand reaches far beyond our team brands. If we can come with the greatest content possible, but at the end of the day, if we incorporate them in our storytelling, not only is our reach bigger, as you can see the numbers on the left, we're reaching new audiences and expanding our brand. So thanks, Kristen. I appreciate the opportunity.
Fantastic. Thank you, Eric. That was awesome. I want to invite up the other Eric DeSalvo from UCF to join us. Eric Lindsay, that was great. We're going to have you back in just a second for the Q&A. Eric DeSalvo, welcome. So glad to have you here.
Thank you. Can you hear me all right with these headphones?
We sure can, and we're about to hand off presenter mode to you, so you should get a prompt right now. You got your UCF gear going today to match the staff?
I'm 100% on brand, you know that. So, cool. Can y'all see that?
Yep, looking good.
All right, awesome. Well, hey, Eric DeSalvo here down in sunny Orlando, where it's really hot, thankfully not in this office. I have been at UCF Athletics since 2013. I actually graduated from UCF in 2009, made my way back to UCF in 2011 full-time, was in the communication side of things before I got into content, and I've been overseeing the social media role since 2013, and thankfully have gotten the staff under us and got an awesome student athlete lineup and great bosses who really make my job easy. So wanted to build off today of it's the power of the moment. We have a lot of moments to share, and our content strategy really shifted in 2013, 14. It was really based off of the main team accounts, the main athletics account. I was overseeing the main athletics account for those first couple of years, and I wanted like everything to come through our accounts. So I wanted to hoard it all and put it out and grow those bases up, right? And then we hired Scott Frost from Oregon at the time. And, you know, that younger voice and younger leadership in our football program, we knew so much more was going to be about recruiting, and we needed to shift that. And
hey, Eric,
thankfully, yep.
I think we want you to take your headphones out real quick because we're getting some feedback on your headphones. So just try using your computer audio instead of the headphones.
Cool. How's that work?
Sounds great. Perfect. Thank you.
All right, no problem. So we hired Scott Frost, and I know we need to change our content strategy to be younger. And so I went to a conference in 2016, and I met Blake Lawrence from Open Doors, and had the presentation by Kelly Mosier, who was at Nebraska at the time, and they're talking about changing your content strategy and putting content in your pro athletes' hands. And I'm like, oh my God, I need this. And at that time, it was just, you know, alumni based. And so we signed up with them, and in 2016 kind of launched and saw the benefits of that. But in 2017, when they allowed student athletes to receive content, we knew we needed to jump in right away. And Shaquem Griffin, who I'm sure everybody knows on the Seahawks now, had a monster season in 2016. He came back in 2017 for us, and he at his first practice said, "Hey, I'm sleeping in the football facility at UCF," and I wanted to make sure we had this awesome video for him. And he was the first student athlete to put out video content through Open Doors, and obviously it performed really well, and it was a piece of content that he could be proud of. And obviously it's recruiting 101 right there, and kind of tying that all in together, because you know you're trying to reach different fan bases, different audiences through these student athletes. And the power of the moment, this happens in game. Gabriel Davis, he's a recent 4th round draft pick for the Buffalo Bills. He catches his ball right here, takes it to the house. And what's really cool about this is his grandpa, he's a native to Orlando area. His grandpa is actually right there on the sideline. He gives him a hug. Didn't know he was going to be there. We saw that happen and learned that it was his grandfather. And so we cut that clip out. I made sure that clip was in his folder for after the game, and sure enough, he posted, and I mean, well over 3,000 engagements and 60,000 views. So just getting that moment into his hands so that he could share it out to his audience makes way more sense than coming from just our football account. Same thing with an offensive lineman who doesn't play. We had a lengthy review at this game against Houston, our space game. Best uniforms in college football right there. And he's a backup lineman. He's dancing to Ain't No Mountain High Enough. We see this happen. Everyone in the stands is loving it. We're like, we got to get him this clip. And so sure enough, he accepts it, goes out to his timeline. Keep in mind, he has 374 followers, period. now, and he had over 1,000 engagements on it. People saying best part of the game. Chris Martin's a former offensive lineman, so he tells them to focus on the game. Don't worry about that. But the best part is when you see them jump in and reply to people and let them know, hey, I appreciate it. So they're reading their comments, they're building up their base and engaging with people with content that we got into their hands. Another one off the field, we went to Busch Gardens before the bowl game this year, and Eric Mitchell's a linebacker of ours, and Sammy Kincaid on our staff had the 360 camera in her hand and sat next to him and showed him having a scary time on the roller coaster. Well over 2,700 engagements and 90,000 views. I think Busch Gardens even picked up the video and put it on their feed. But just off the field stuff that normally you wouldn't think about mattering is a big deal for these guys, and it's also recruiting. We didn't stop at student athletes. We wanted to make sure we could get content into our coaches' hands as well as our administration. It started in 2016 with Scott Frost, not a big tweeter. So when Scott Frost tweeted, we knew it was going to be, the fan base knew it was going to be a big deal. And so it was the first time in UCF's history they're going to have a different helmet decal on a helmet. And so we made sure to get in his hands. Our fan base freaked out. Love you, Pops. Always love that one. And that strategy continued. We hired Josh Heupel after Frost departed to Nebraska. Heupel comes in. He was actually already on Open Doors. Right as he takes the job, I get into his office and I had him do a selfie video to get onto his account because I knew it was a big deal to have that. And so after big road wins, we would get content into his hands, and all he has to do is hit accept, and he's showing off the locker room. It's obviously excited, and it's appealing to the recruits and the fans and everybody else there. But I think everybody knows Danny White after the 3 magic words he said on January 1st, 2018. Obviously very outspoken and a great leader for UCF. And it's coming to that strategy of what message and what platform do I want these messages to come out through. If we put out a season ticket message out through our Knights account or out through our football account, it could fall flat, right? Because people are like, yeah, whatever. But if it comes from Danny White and it comes in a way where they know he means business, it's going to resonate more. Obviously, it gets over 600 engagements and people are replying and people are jumping in and sharing the online renewal incentives. So that thread helps people out too. And it just helps people know that when Danny White is putting content out, it's got a benefit to it. We didn't just stop at administration. We wanted to get our mayor involved, Mayor Buddy Dyer in Orlando, and we know his staff members, and we were able to get him on Open Doors too to help with game day promotion. Obviously, UCF's the only football team in town here in Orlando with no pro franchise, and so wanted to pump up this game and got a quote tweet into his hands, and he helped out. When it comes though to our alumni, we still keep them engaged. Shaquille Griffin had a Pro Bowl year for the Seahawks and had this huge pass breakup on Monday Night Football in that classic game against the 49ers. Stood up like this after that pass breakup, was able to get this photo. Don't worry about where I got it from. I did get it though, and I got it into his hands. All he has to do when he gets to his locker is hit accept. He hits accept, goes on his timeline. The fans are obviously pumped about it. That moment right there, super powerful because of the big win. He gets over 48,000 engagements, reaches over 3 million people, all because we were able to get into his hands in a timely manner. Then fast forward, think about content that you might not have been able to put out from your accounts, and whose hands can you put it in? Gabe Davis gets drafted by the Buffalo Bills. You have connections with these other teams I'm sure you've made over the years. Use those connections. Karina with the Buffalo Bills, awesome. Met her when she was at Florida State, and she's at the Buffalo Bills. And I was like, I've got something for you. Gabe Davis drives a minivan, now drives a nice truck. But we took this footage last year, didn't ever get to put it together. And I said, hey, we've got all this. What would you like to do? Would you like to do something with it? And she's like, oh yeah, please get it to us. Sure enough, they get it together. 117,000 views on a minivan video with Gabe. It also personalizes Gabe to the fan base because they don't know who he is right now. Now they know he's a fun guy that they're going to have on their team. They actually turned it into a commercial for Toyota, which is hilarious. So just a lot of stuff to think about when it comes to your content. There's so many channels you can put it out through. Just take a step back before you do that. think, where is the best place I can put this? Whose hands can I put it in? You know, use one of those tools that can help you put it in their hands easily. And as Eric said, they are trained now to know that, like, hey, I go here, I can get this, I can get it onto my feed and get awesome engagement from fans, family members, whoever it may be. So
Fantastic,
that's
Eric.
that is it from me.
That was great. I'd love to invite the rest of our panelists back up for a Q&A conversation. Eric, I love watching you click around all those examples. It's so fun to see all the different ways that people are using your content. And I'm sure for you guys, it feels really good to see, you know, that content that otherwise, you know, could have been sitting sort of on your own servers, having a life so far beyond your own channels. That's very cool, and I'm sure it's opened up a lot of possibilities for you guys. We want to take some questions, so find your questions box. The first question from the audience is from Alejandra. Which program do you guys use to manage your social media calendar? So when you're thinking about planning all of these moments, what tools are you using to plan? And then how do you organize your future posts for social media? How are you scheduling? Eric DeSalvo, you want to kick it off?
So we use a lot of Dropbox paper, actually. We're big with Dropbox, and so we really like their paper function and use that for a calendar as well as to-do lists, especially for game days and assigning roles and stuff like that. So Dropbox paper has been huge for us.
Very cool. Kelly?
We use Asana as our calendar program primarily. It helps us kind of integrate between our digital social channels and be able to layer a lot of different calendars together, because for us, a lot of it is not just on our social channels, but going across to other areas within our organization as well, and how we use that content.
Awesome. Preston?
I don't really use a calendar because we just work with distributing to the athletes. So I guess if anything, I would just say Open Doors is kind of our one-stop shop for all that type of thing.
Mm-hmm. And Eric Lindsay?
We use Salesforce, and we brought in specifically, I mentioned this in presentation, we brought in somebody this year to specifically oversee that and manage that. And I think outside of an actual tool that we use, I think the biggest thing for us that's really worked well the last couple of years is just being intentional about meetings. I know we all dislike meetings and get in front of each other and talking through stuff, but talking through what we're doing tomorrow, next week, next month, and even 3 months from now has been really big in our social media planning.
Awesome. And one thing that we hear over and over again from our PhotoShelter community, a lot of the people who are here on the call, is that it's nice when you can see, you know, that new level of access opens up a lot of possibilities for your images. So how are you guys seeing that, you know, in terms of a photo that might not have made the cut on your brand channel has a new life through a player? Kelly, you want to kick it off?
Sure. I think it's so important for us to have that capability. When we've added in PhotoShelter and being able to tag, you know, all of our athletes' names organized by folders for them and provide that content. I think Preston talked a lot on that. We're driven at the LPGA by our athletes. We're there to serve them, and, you know, in our content and our brands, you know, channels is really important, but it's also really important that they have those images at the moment they need them after a win. Having the highlights, having photos, all of those different things are really important to get in their hands. So having it organized to know and be able to distribute multiple photos, because you might not know that exact one that they're going to want specifically. We can definitely always give our advice on them, but they're going to have the ones that they really want to see.
And
Absolutely.
in golf, there's just so many players. Like, you know, there's no chance that we could effectively post a photo of everyone that did well. Like this past Sunday at RBC Heritage, I think we had 20 plus players shoot 68 or better. So in theory, we should be posting about all of them, but we just can't. So this gives an opportunity to make sure that they have it to leverage on their own.
Great. Eric Lindsay?
Yeah, I look at it as it's such an asset for us, an advantage to be able to now have other platforms. Somebody who just, you know, I get a gallery after game, 100, 150 photos. I'm like, I want to use this and this and this and this, and you can't use them all. You know, there's a delicate balance in how much you can actually put out there before your audience drowns you out. So it's great for us to say, hey, okay, these are 3 or 4 photos we really want to use and really want to drive home on our team account. But hey, this photo for this player might resonate with him and he might use it. So for us, it kind of widens and makes the web bigger, and you know, it's casting beyond that team brand that we talked about.
Absolutely. Eric?
Yeah, I think when you're on a team, and you're running a team account, you've got to have more team specific stuff. You're thinking about how many times you used offense or defense, and you can't always use the individual player. So getting those extra shots that are outside of the moment, getting those into their hands and letting them maximize on it, because a lot of these guys and gals love to post a carousel of different photos from a game, and so you might as well load them up with a bunch of them so that they can take advantage or space them out if they want to as well.
Yep. I wanted to know if you have players ever share photos that surprise you, the ones that you share with them and you're like, wow, I can't believe they picked that photo. Can you think of an example of a time that happened? Somebody give me a nod if you've got one.
Photo
Preston?
example, but I do have a funny example. The reason we started partnering with Opendorse was one of our athletes in 2016. I texted him a link to a Dropbox of photos, and he just tweeted that link of the Dropbox. So, and that kind of was like my aha moment of we got to figure this out.
That is a good story. A very good tale of warning. Eric?
Chris, what I would say is, like, we like to think as ourselves as professionals, and we know what a good photo is and what's going to resonate. And so often I've found, I don't have a specific example, but I can tell you there's been a number of examples where we think, oh, that photo is a kind of a throwaway photo, but it means something to the player. And if it means something to them, there's a good chance that their followers is going to mean something too. And I find that really the professionals, again, in terms of storytelling and knowing who's the best, it's the people that we're shooting and we're documenting every day.
Awesome. Before we move on, oh, sure. Go ahead.
I'll just add to Eric's. I mean, you'd be surprised at athletes who are willing to make fun of themselves, or, we're always trying to put them in the best light or say, hey, this is a great photo of you or whatever. And they pick out the ones where they don't look good or they've got a really funny look on their face, and that photo blows up because people just appreciate them having that sense of humor. So I think, us trying to always make sure that we're managing and giving them the best one, giving them that opportunity to take and make fun of themselves or, have fun in a humorous moment is important too.
I love that. One last question from Mark from Playbill Magazine. So a lot of the conversations have been about working with your influencers and, how to give them the best content. Any advice on how to have that content given to the influencers circle back to drive traffic to your own channels and your own brand? Are you asking your athletes to tag your brand channels? Any other tips or advice for, using their reach to help your own channels grow? Preston?
Yeah, sure. It's easiest on Twitter with the video links sharing functionality. So we do that with a lot of our videos. If anything is tweeted by the league account first, we will always take the video URL and have the player post that. The fan sees it as native; they're never the wiser, but we own all the views. So that's one way we do it. Instagram, there's currently really not a way, so you just kind of have to be okay with giving up your footage and understanding it's going to come back to you. And on Facebook, we've been increasingly trying to educate our athletes on cross-posting, but it's still not a very easy workflow for the end user, so we still struggle with that as well. But on Twitter, it's pretty seamless. And we do a ton of quote tweeting as well, where we suggest the athlete add their own commentary in that capacity as well.
Great. Eric DeSalvo, did you have something to add there?
Yeah, quote tweeting is big. With Opendorse, you can send a suggested tweet to them. All they have to do is hit accept, or they can edit it. So a lot of the times I'll send them a quote tweet or the video link, or I'll sneak in our handle into the post and see if they do it. And a lot of the time, honestly, can't hurt.
That's great. Awesome.
Kristen, I'll jump in with one.
Go ahead.
Just to follow up on kind of what Eric DeSalvo was just talking about. Is there kind of a back and forth, or do you develop a back and forth relationship with the suggested tweets? I mean, this could be a question for anybody, but you're sending them the imagery, the copy already, and then maybe they're editing it, maybe they're not. But over time, developing that relationship, do you start to write based on what they'll like, or based on, or even send them what you think certain individuals will like?
Yeah, I know I look through their profile and try to get how they form it. Like Adrian Killens was a former running back of ours, one of the fastest guys in college football. He tweeted in all caps. So whenever I sent him content, I would send it in all caps, and he would usually hit accept. And then, depending on what emojis they use, a lot of stuff like that. So you're doing a lot of homework. It's, once again, all these people know this. there's so much that goes into one post and so much that goes into other people's posts. And so those are the things that we obviously go on in our crazy heads.
But I love that point that if you give them the content they want, like what is true to them, the more likely they'll be to share it. I love this question from Alyssa, who said, I've seen a lot of colleges focus on video and not so much on photos, which is kind of funny because it's a contrast to what Preston mentioned. You know, sometimes the still photo is, you know, the iconic piece of imagery of the day. Is there a benefit to having dedicated photographers versus just content creators? I would say yes, indeed, but I'd love to hear from Eric Lindsay first.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely depends on your platform. I mean, one thing I focused on today was Instagram, and I would tell you that we find in most of our metrics that you know the power of the photo often beats the power of video on that particular platform. And we look at, like, we're very fortunate in Kentucky. We have a lot of resources, and we dedicate, you know, we have a full-time photographer that follows us, and a lot of times bring a second photographer for certain events. So yeah, we look at it as two different strengths, and we evaluate every case. You know, we're planning out, hey, how are we going to handle this? You know, sometimes it's better on photo, sometimes it's better on video, sometimes it's both, because it gives you different perspectives.
Absolutely, I totally agree. I think we need to wrap it up. Any last thoughts that we didn't get to from the group here? Excellent. Well, thank you guys so much. That was a fantastic panel, and it's so cool to see how you're bringing your message even beyond your own brand channels. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kristen.